Have you ever said you want to write a family history? Have you ever started planning what you're going to do and what you're going to write, and you've taken these courses and you just keep planning and planning and planning? Well, at some point, you have to stop planning and you need to start writing your family history. And today, I'm going to talk to you about doing just that. Because if we just keep thinking about writing a family history and then making timelines and charts and pulling all the research together and thinking, yeah, we're going to do it and we're going to do it, and we don't do it, the book doesn't get done. And it is better to have a imperfectly formatted in grammarly correct family history story written than nothing in your brain. And it's okay if it's less than the most engaging family history ever written, if it's just stuck in your head. Because we can't do anything with something you just plan, but we can do something that you have written. And remember, the goal of the first draft is always to get to the end of the first draft. Then we enhance it through editing. So stop being afraid of being perfect. Turn off your inner editor, turn off your inner critic, and you need to just start writing. Start writing that family story and say, you know what, inner critic, you know what, inner editor, I'm going to come back to you in a little bit. You have a place, but not when. I'm going from planning to first draft. That's not your place. You come back later. And if you've heard me say that before, go ahead and say amen in the comments because I preach that again and again and again. Now, another thing that I want you to consider is storyboarding is helpful when you're trying to write a compelling family history, but if you are moving from planning to first draft, it's not okay. It really isn't okay, because storyboarding is best done when you know the ins and outs of your family story and you can rearrange the different components and then tell a great story. So I'm going to ask you to postpone storyboarding until after you have written your first draft. And then when you have written your first draft, then I have a link in my show notes over on my blog that will give you a fantastic research by my colleague to tell you how to do storyboarding. Now, the next thing I want you to do, I want you to get off the message boards. I want you to get off of Facebook. I want you to get out of the groups that talk about writing, and I want you to go write. Because asking questions about how do I write an interesting family history in Reddit or Facebook writing groups or on Quora, that's not going to help you. What's really going to help you is to get your first draft written, follow the techniques that I've talked about over on my blog and on my YouTube channel. There's lots of information on how to get that first draft written, and then say, okay, I had this situation. I had this ancestor, and he was a farmer, and all he did was farming. How do I make that story more interesting? These are the facts that I have. What do I do with it? And somebody say, oh, I can see. Why don't you go and look at this context? Why don't you go learn more about dairy farming? Why don't you learn more about the type of structures he had? Let's talk about the years it took in order to build this farm, and we can see, oh my gosh, there was a decrease in how much cattle they had if they had a dairy farm, so they're going to have cattle. So you're going to see, oh, this year they kind of leaned their herd, and then this year they were able to expand their herd. The stories are there. See? But until you get that rough draft written, you can't go talk on the message boards on how to make it better. Now, there is a young adult author and YouTube educator who I adore. Her name is Donne. There will be links in the show notes over on my blog post that will tell you how to go find out more about her. But she had this to say in this harsh writing advice, encouraging young adult writers to start writing. And I think it's applicable to family history writers. She said, some of us prefer having written to actually writing, but you have to actually write to have written. Meaning, a lot of us spend time with dreaming of the day that we're going to write a family story. And then maybe we'll do a lot of planning, but we don't want to do the hard work of writing that first draft and editing that first draft so that we can have a final product. And so let's not be in this camp that she talks about. Instead, let's actually be those who actually write so we can get to have written. Now, some of you are thinking, you know what, I've got all this plan, I've got all this source, and I just can't actually begin. Well, in that point, I'm going to invite you to get the help of some others. Now, LegacyTree genealogists have people that will write your stories. And you could say, hey, I want you to just take it from my plans and my research that I've already done and turn it into a draft. And then negotiate how much input you want to give into the revision stage. Maybe you're okay with their revising it themselves, but contact them and get some help. I myself do a little bit of contract work and helping people write their family stories, and they do have some writing workshops planned for 2022, and so be sure to check that out. The best way to know about those workshops is to get on my emailing list, and you can find a link to how to do that over in the blog post. So check out familyhistoryfanatics.com, go over to blog, go to writing, and you're going to find all of the show notes plus some additional tips and tricks on how to write your family story.